Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. New details today about just how concerned first responders were regarding safety when they responded to a deadly building fire in Door County in 2022.
2 people died in that fire. Butch's Bar was destroyed. The state argues Anthony Gonzalez is the person responsible for it. He's facing 7 charges, including 2 counts of second-degree reckless homicide for the deaths of 67-year-old Gary Heisey and 54-year-old Victor Uris. Brittany Schmidt joins us from the newsroom with trial testimony today from Door County Court.
Cami and Bill, while on the witness stand today, first responders painted a very clear picture of all the safety concerns they encountered when responding to the fire, from getting people out safely to protecting the public to recovering those who died in the fire. The Sturgeon Bay Fire Chief says the size and location of the fire on 3rd Avenue posed many risks to the city and its residents. While crews worked to get people out of the building, others were concerned about clearing nearby sidewalks for fear of a collapse. The chief had 2 major other concerns. 1, a major communication line located near the building controlled area-wide communications, including 911 services. 2, a major power source also nearby provided power to the hospital and a major section of the town. Recovering the bodies was also a challenge, as there seemed to be a constant fear about the building's structural integrity. Large equipment had to be brought in to recover the bodies. In terms of the building prior to the fire chief says it met fire regulations for a multi-use commercial building.
The time of the fire at Butch's in February of 2022, was that building in compliance with fire safety code at the time?
Yes.
And how is it that you know that?
Based upon our inspection and our reinspection records that have identified the initial inspection with the failures and the corrections and the reinspection.
Coming up tonight at 6, a look at the State Fire Marshal's interview with Anthony Gonzalez after he supposedly told several people the fire started in his room on the 2nd floor of the building. Bill?